Good morning.
Morning. Morning.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
See, Commissioner Roberts, you turn the camera on. Now I gotta turn the camera on. Yeah.
Because we're about to get started in a couple minutes. We're about to get started.
I try not to turn the camera on regardless. Nobody wants to look at my face.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. Yes, we do. Oh, yeah. Give folks a few more minutes. Good morning, Commissioner Reed. You're muted.
Muted.
Morning. How are you young people doing?
Good morning, Commissioner Reed.
How you doing, sir?
I am doing fine, doing fine. I hope everybody had a chance to do some celebration, some solemn celebration of Juneteenth yesterday.
Absolutely.
That was a great choice of words, solemn.
Yeah, and you know, Commissioner Reed, I meant that. That's exactly what's the right word I meant.
Great choice of words. Yeah. Party all the time. Party all the time.
Yeah, yeah.
Commissioner Coy is here. The gang is all here.
Hello.
Hello.
Serving. Chief Nelson, are you serving as the chief designee?
I haven't been informed that I am doing that, but I can text Allison if that's helpful.
Yeah, so we can get started.
Hi, Miss Watkins. How are you?
I am well. How are you doing?
Okay. I have that poster behind you.
I thought it was time to rah-rah a little bit today, so.
I think I have a copy of that one.
You do.
Yeah.
And also, do we have Jessica on from the board office? We do. Good morning, Jessica.
Good morning.
Okay, we can get started once I know who the CEO designee is this morning.
I've texted her, just waiting on a response. I'll let you know as soon as I get one.
Thank you, Chief Nelson.
Jonathan, Allison didn't tell you, did you?
No, I was just looking back over email and text. I hadn't seen anything.
Okay. Good morning, Commissioner Coy, Commissioner Esposito.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Allison is on.
Yeah, sorry, I'm at the Leadership Institute. I couldn't get my computer to work, but I'm here.
Oh,
No worries. Thank you. We will get started this morning. Good morning, everyone, and happy Tuesday, June 20th. This is our last Operations Committee meeting for the 2022-2023 school year. We made it through, friends. We are going to get started this morning with our first presentation, which is the June 2023 update on Administrative Modernization Project. I would ask for all my colleagues for any questions or comments that you have about any of the presentations to please hold them until the end of each respective presentation. For staff, we have a little bit of flexibility this morning, but please still try to stick to your allotted presentation schedule. With that being said, good morning to the AMP team.
Good morning. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Great. We'll just kick off and get going. So good morning, commissioners. We wanted to take a few minutes to give you an update on where AMP stands. As you know, AMP is the Administrative Modernization Project, commonly known by a lot of people as the Enterprise Resource Planning. It is sponsored and guided by Chief Doherty, Chief Nielsen, and of course myself, Chief Jones. As is always, we talk about where does AMP connect to the board's strategic priorities. And as always, it is about priority 3. City schools will have high quality, modernized facilities and resources to support the success of students, educators, administrators, and staff. So we are preparing for Go Live. Go Live is just around the corner, or 2 or 3 weeks away. And we thought it was important to give you a little bit of an idea of what that means. What that means is we're going to go over AMP real quickly, what all of it is. We're going to talk about who's impacted. We're going to talk about what to expect before Go Live. We're going to talk about the training that has been going on and is still going on. We want to tell you a little bit about the rollout details, because there will be a tremendous amount of activity going on within the school system over the summer. I always laugh when I meet people outside of a school system and they talk about how great it is to have summers off, and I just crack up and smile. And we want to talk about after Go Live, what we call hypercare, which is helping our users as they are going through the process of transitioning and immediately thereafter. We've set up a Go Live help network to support people. We thought we should tell you a little bit about that. I know that's of deep concern to everybody here. And with that, I will turn it over to my colleagues.
Good morning, everyone. So on this slide, we're going to talk a little bit about what we're going to see with phase 1. So what's included in phase 1 and also what's excluded. So just phase 1 at a glance. So we're transitioning our 22-year-old Oracle EBS system to Oracle Fusion Cloud. And in that, we're including a number of modules. So what's included is our general ledger, accounts payable, accounts receivable, cash management, fixed assets, expenses, grants, purchasing, supplier portal contracts, and our base human capital. So this means that we're shutting down, K-12 buy, which we've used historically for procurement, since there is a procurement module, the purchasing module as part of Oracle Fusion Cloud. Also means these items on the right are not included in what we call phase 1. So it doesn't mean that we're not doing it, but some of these things we're going to hit on in phase 2, which is like budget. That's the entirety of phase 2. And then payroll is included in phase 3, which is the human capital functionality. So in there, we're going to hit employee self-service benefits, our on and offboarding, and employee data. The next piece after that, actually the piece that I'm probably the most excited about, is our data warehousing functionality. So this is really our advanced analytic, advanced reporting. It's essentially going to sit on top of both our old and new systems and be able to pull and manipulate data from those systems. Oracle Fusion Cloud comes with some basic reporting. This is really building on that and creating more advanced analytics for the district. Also, we have our LMS, our learning management systems for adults and students, and our PMS systems, performance management systems, which we're going to be getting into as part of phase 3 as well. So who's impacted by the phase 1 financials? So we have a handy little sort of chart here that has an overview of the different user types and the level of impact. So starting on the left, in terms of light impact, users such as teachers, paraprofessionals, the general district office staff, and our floating staff. The information that they're going to be tethered to will be different. So it's going to be a new system. But these aren't some of the folks who are actively using the system on a day-to-day basis. If we look at our medium impact group, our school leaders, central office managers, office support staff, these are folks who are doing things like submitting purchase orders or approving, reviewing purchase orders, budget amendments, expense reports. So they're going to be activities in their day-to-day affairs that are impacted by the new system, but not so much as our heavy impact group, which is our requisitioners, buyers, and our finance staff in the district. These are the folks who are absolutely accessing the new system on a daily basis. So they're doing their reconciliations, doing all their purchasing, invoicing, getting our vendors entered into the system, getting our vendors paid. So the day-to-day lives for a lot of the finance staff who've been working very hard on this is going to be the most heavily impacted, as well as the folks whose designated roles in the schools and in central office is to create those requisitions, make sure they're going in and receiving them, submitting invoices for payment, et cetera. So those sort of folks will be most heavily impacted. We've also highlighted on this chart, if you see the column in the very bright red, some of the frustrations that folks have expressed, from the old system, our old 22-year-old system, things that we've tried to identify and highlight and find ways to, minimize in the new system. So for our light impact folks, so this is unable to see the status of submissions. Like, once you submit something, it kind of disappears into the nether regions, and no one knows what happens to it until you find out either it got approved or didn't get approved, and you're sending an email to someone to figure out whatever happened to that thing I submitted. So there's a lot more transparency in the new system in terms of where things are with regards to processing, who they're sitting with, what the approval queues look like. So that's something that we're looking forward to. For our medium impact group, same thing, not knowing where things are, but also some of the tasks that they do on a regular basis or oversee on a regular basis, not having status insight into those. When you're getting questions from like vendors, hey, is that requisition or purchase order been approved yet? And you're not fully sure because you're not getting notifications, or you need to go in and check, or you're not the one with access to view it. So those are some of the things. Like I said, transparency is a big piece of it. We've worked pretty diligently on the approval queues, who's going to see what the sequence of events is, how that's going to roll out, who has access to what. Of course, we know with the new rollout, there's going to be some bumps and bruises with that, but it's one of the things that we're hoping comes to the forefront immediately in terms of transparency. Next slide. So what to expect before go live. So this is a look at some of our year-end close activities. So as you can see by the dates, these are things that we've already been going through and already been preparing for our soft go live, which is in just 2 weeks from now. So we we gave instructions as to how approvals for requisitions would take place. So we asked that most of those be completed by the 15th. And we're setting a schedule for buyer approvals for the 26th. We created an exemption process that allowed folks to submit past that deadline. And some of the reasoning behind this, of course, is that in transitioning from the old system to the new system, you're going to have to freeze your data as of some point. So that's what this is built around. Going from the old to the new, we're going to have to shut off information, shut off transactions, shut off operations so that we can begin them in the new system. If you're still processing things and doing transactions in the old system, you're going to have a sort of a lapse between the data that's in the old system and the new. So we're trying to create as clean a break as possible, which is why we're putting these processes in place. But as I mentioned, we did have an exemption process. Most of these approvals run through next week, so everything should be approved by 27 so that we can shut off as of that date and carry everything over into the new system. For a couple of the things that are, going to be transactions that have to be done during the blackout period, we have a few workarounds, but essentially K12 Buy will be unavailable during this blackout period. P-Star will be unavailable. We did create a little bit of a workaround so that folks could sort of pre-load their FY24 P-Stars, knowing that there's going to be a rush for P-Stars in the first week of FY24. EBS financials are going to be unavailable for most folks, except for some of the subject matter experts in finance who need to access that data for year-end closing. So there's going to be, like we said, that blackout period of the days between June 27th and July 5th. And we show this, graphically on the next slide a bit. Now, those dates you see there in black from the 27th to the 5th, it's because of, the time of year. Also, we're transitioning at our fiscal year. So our fiscal year 23 is ending, fiscal year 24 is starting, makes for a cleaner transition for the data. But also, because of the dates that we chose, while our folks are going to be online and working during that period, it's also a little bit beneficial in the sense that there are a couple holidays, there's a weekend in there, for the district at large. So we're minimizing as much as possible the impact on the general district in terms of actual usable work days. So you have the 30th, 1st, 2nd, 4th, which are holidays. So that kind of makes it a little easier in terms of how many work days folks would actually be missing. So finance, IT staff, they're going to be on hand, a couple of HC folks. So we're going to be working through that period to try and get things online and tested, making sure all the data is migrated, making sure all the information's in there where it's supposed to be and it looks the way it's supposed to. There's any number of things that could go wrong during that period. So, we're kind of all hands on deck to make sure we're being as responsive as possible, and that we're getting things set up as quickly as possible so that we have our soft go live on the 5th, at which point we're going to start to introduce some of our selected users to the new system. They've already been receiving training on the system. Our SMEs are going to be working in the system that they've been working on, and testing for the last few months. So to that end, we're hoping, for the soft go live to be pretty fluid. But during the next few days between the 5th and 10th, getting everything ready for our general launch for our users for our official go live on the 10th, the following Monday. So there's going to be a lot of testing and back and forth and fixing during that period and afterwards in terms of some of the support that we're going to be providing for our staff across the district. All right, so this slide looks graphically at some of our training. We have some of the different groups that are impacted by training and the supports. So as you can see, training isn't something that we just kind of picked up with now in July. It's been ongoing. We've had training for the SMEs at different portions of the process with our user acceptance training, our trainer training, training for our users and champions. We've selected folks within different work groups and areas as our process champions who've had a little bit more of a preview into the system and the new processes that are going to be taking place. We've been conducting training with specific groups, based on the area of expertise. So there's training for accounts payable users, training for the folks who are submitting requisitions, purchase orders, invoices, etc. Training for folks submitting reimbursements. So we've been targeting different groups for those trainings. Doesn't mean that everyone who's needed to be trained has been trained. They're still ongoing, and there's still multiple touch points. We don't expect everyone to kind of, absorb everything one time. And we're also learning through the training process as well. Through the training process and feedback of folks who've been sitting in the training, we're getting feedback as to how we can better deliver training, what needs to be included, how we need to stand up like sort of long-term data for reference, what those materials need to look like, the complexity of what we're presenting in terms of our training. And there are a lot of things that we're building on there long-term in terms of how we're going to be managing our training moving forward for finance. Even pre the AMP project, we did annual training for folks on our budget amendment processes, our PSAR processes. So training is a regular part of what we do. We know that there are folks who are new to the district every year in roles where they're going to be interacting with these systems. So we have to think about how we bring them on board. So some of that is going to be continuing. So in addition to, the training of the new system and reacquainting folks with the new system, there's going to be ongoing training as we move forward for staff and just kind of brushing up on the system and any updates that we may make to the system. Because we know as it stands right now, it is not yet in its final state. There's still things that we're going to be tweaking. There's still processes that we're going to be building around these things. As much as we wanted to prepare for what the new go live state would look like, anticipating how processes are going to change, there's things that we absolutely, we really couldn't figure out until we got hands-on with the system. We tried to embed our processes into the system. We got an understanding of exactly what works, what doesn't work the way that we thought it would, or what workarounds we've had to build to kind of get to the end goal. So because of that, some of those trainings are going to be very dynamic. That's part of why we're setting up that training academy, so users can access information. We're also trying to make sure that the training and information is very user forward. It's coming to you in the system, with pop-ups and help, et cetera, that are built into the system as you go through different steps. You're going to get, prompts as to how you can interact with the system, different shortcuts and things you can do. So a lot of these things, we're going to build over time. We're going to adjust over time. We've learned a lot in phase one. We were the guinea pigs in finance for phase one. So we've learned a lot. Hopefully that'll help facilitate some of what we do for phase three in the HR system, as well as some of what we're working on right now with the budgeting system. And also, we have training on the graphic you can see there upcoming for our PMS and our LMS, both our adult and student facing learning management system training as well. So those will be coming up afterwards as part of phase three.
Wow, thank you, Courtney. So as you guys can see, there's a lot of work going on behind the scenes to help our end users get ready to accept the program. But let's talk a little bit about what we're actually planning to do as part of our Go Live rollout. So as Courtney alluded to, we have a soft Go Live or soft launch on the 5th, where we're going to kind of kick the tires with some designated users. And then on the 10th, we will be going live for the rest of the district. So what does that mean to us? We are not going to just roll everything out and walk away and assume that the training took care of all of it. We actually have a Go Live plan that helps our folks get that early adoption that we want them to get, and that comfort level that we want them to get with the system. So weeks 1 through 4, those are going to be what we call hypercare, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. But it's basically going to be all hands on deck. We have like a little war room situation where if our users are having problems or questions or need help, all of us will be able to get together, our SMEs, our implementation partners, and us to get together and work through the problem. Weeks 5 through 8, we're going to start easing back off of that a little bit. We're going to still do a lot of communication. We're going to do a lot of checkpoints and pulse points to see where everyone is. We're going to ease back a little bit, but we will also be looking, as Courtney said, how do we need to modify our training? What do we need to do to update our FAQs? What do we need to make sure that the service desk knows so that they can handle some of those questions that may come up? As we move through weeks 9 through 12, again, more temperature checks just to see where we are on adoption, and seeing how we can ease back. Potentially at this point, service desk would be doing most of the support if there's a need for it at the tier 1, what we call tier 1 level, just kind of helping people figure out how to navigate, how to do some basic things with their expense reporting, potentially helping them understand how to use the features that Courtney discussed about the pop-ups and how to use the system to help them through. And then by week 13, we'll really be starting to push folks into the training academy to look there for additional training that they might need. We'll be completely transitioned to the service desk, and we'll continue to build our FAQs because we know we're going to need them as we go into August and September and folks come back to work. So I did discuss hypercare a little bit, so let me go into that a bit more. We do totally understand that folks are not going to get everything that they need from the training, whether or not it's just that they haven't had the opportunity yet to take the training. So we will be pushing the training, but we will also be doing that more of a 24/7. Well, I don't want to say that, commit everyone to that exactly, but it will be a much more ramped up version of the help desk. So we're not going to be asking people to just go to the service desk and wait. We are going to be working with our power users, our change agents, the SMEs to help people when they have a question. Ideally, there'll be something quick and we can get them back on their way and help them feel comfortable with the system. If not, we will have a working group that will be here to work on any of the more difficult items to see if we need to create workarounds or whatever it is that we need to do. But the intent of this is to get the user on their way into the system, feeling comfortable with being able to do the task that they need to do in the system. Ultimately, we're looking at by week 4, getting into more of a steady state where users can use the service desk and they don't need all of the extra support. But again, as we discussed on the previous slide, if we see that the pulse point is that we need to make that still available, we can flex that a little bit as we see fit. Next slide. So again, as we talk about Go Live, we do have a network that we are building and putting in place. Our change management team is helping us start to really build up a user community so that users might be able to help each other. But we will also have our service desk and our hypercare available to us. And again, ultimately, we want our service desk to be their starting point, but the hypercare will be there to get people started and up and running quickly. And then finally, we do actually have this overall plan to help people so that we know that our end users don't have to flounder. They can find their help easily and get them used to the system and get them to feel comfortable and prepare them, as Courtney said, for phase 2 and phase 3 so that they already have a comfort level with the system.
And why? What is the reason? All of this is really about operating more effectively for our owners, who we always acknowledge as the students and teachers that we support. And, you know, we talked about strategic goal strategy, priority 3. It is about having better resources that are more effective. And we just say students are the actual owners of it all. Questions, comments?
I guess I can ask a couple. I guess one, looks like out of the box, this is owned by a consortium of people. I guess at the end, when we finish, is this owned by the consortium or is this owned by you, Chief Tommy, and your group?
It's not owned by me. I'm a technology guy.
Okay.
But it is owned by Chief Doherty, Chief Nielsen, and myself. We all play a different role. Chief Doherty's team brings all the financial information. That's if you have a financial question, that's where you go. Chief Emily will be here for all the HC that we're rolling out in the future. And of course, my team is here to support any technology issues or problems that come up, you know. But if you ask me about closing the books, I'm gonna turn to Chief Doherty.
Thank you, Chief Jones. Commissioner Coy?
Sort of one short question, but then I have a bigger question, which is piggybacking a little off of what Commissioner Vito saying. Is this has been called obviously the different names as have gone through the process. AMP, you know, is the process of the modernization. What is the ultimate name for this? Is it going to be just called ERP, or like what do people refer to this in the future as it's being now fully rolled out?
I'll give you my personal preference. It's AMP. It's Administrative Modernization. Most people are probably going to call it the ERP system. And, you know, the name of the software is Fusion. So there'll be some people who say, let's go to the Fusion system.
Okay, that's good. I do think the degree to which there is sort of consistency there might help with some of the process, but I'll let you all, that's a managerial sort of design question. My actual question, though, that I wanted to ask was, what are you most worried about being a struggle at this point? As you sort of like think about this, you've been spending so much time with it, you've been so close to it, but now that it's going live, which is really exciting. I mean, I know you've all been working on this for so long. What are you worried about? What do you think might be a struggle here at this point in time?
Chief Doherty or Nielsen, do you want to answer before I do?
You can answer first.
Hello, Commissioner Coy. This is Chris Doherty, Chief Financial Officer. I guess I'll take the bait and say we worry about everything. I mean, you know, golly, I don't even like to say the words out loud, but to answer your question, we worry about not being able to pay vendors if there are certain glitches. We worry about sending the wrong payments, to different vendors. We worry about payroll ultimately being, kind of going kerflooey. We worry about everything. And frankly, I think that if we avoid a gigantic kind of irreversible mistake or foul up, then that'll be total success. The city of Baltimore, for example, went through a smaller version of this kind of administrative modernization program, and their mistakes were carried weekly in the Baltimore Sun. And other places have had big problems. We have actually brought that, I don't want to say pessimism, but we have brought that knowledge that things can go terribly wrong in a number of different ways to every bit of our planning. When Ty and Courtney were talking about the structures and the war room and the hypercare, it was actually driven by our knowledge that because these systems touch everybody and do so many things, mistakes, or I keep saying mistakes, but things that we don't anticipate touch everyone. So I don't know if that's too broad of a question, but from my side, and maybe Chief Nielsen will have her version of the parade of horribles, but we worry about angry vendors. We worry about people getting the wrong payments. We worry about people not getting paid or getting incorrect pay. One colleague who previously worked on an ERP update in a healthcare situation, millions of records, personal medical records, were sent to different people, and appointments for one person were sent to another person. I mean, that's how badly things can go if you don't pay attention to every little detail. There were 100,000 HIPAA violations in the first few minutes of the new system. I mean, those are the kinds of things that can go catastrophically wrong, and we're trying to have that guide our actions. So what I mean by that is, if there are smaller problems are almost no problems. There are going to be bumps and there are going to be hiccups. What we hope is that Courtney doesn't get Ty's pay and my pay goes to Ty's old bank account and all those kinds of things that are super hard to get back, because they're going to be growing pains, but we're hoping to avoid catastrophe. And we've been planning in order to avoid catastrophe and having kind of a go slow to go fast approach, because we haven't taken any of these things lightly. I hope that's not too apocalyptic, Commissioner Coy, but that's what's been guiding this. ERPs make or break organizations, and adoptions of them can make or break, quite a lot of pottery.
Yeah, and I'll just add 2 seconds to that, if you don't mind, Commissioner Reed, before you ask your question. I agree 1,000% with Chief Doherty, and I'll add one extra piece. We have spent a tremendous amount of time trying to understand the way things work, what we could fix, what we could do better. We have not rushed to try to fix everything on the planet, because the more things you take on, the greater your opportunity. So I think more than anything else, I feel very confident when I consider the hours the staff have put in, and you notice I said the staff, not me. I said the staff have put in trying to make sure they've thought of everything. I feel good, but you always worry about, did you miss a small thing that, and we don't know. We'll find out, and with plans to deal with it as we go. So I'm not really worried, but I'm always worried.
Commissioner Reed?
Yeah, when I think of, someone mentioned earlier about the city in terms of their whole rollout, how it was in the paper from the glitches. When I look at this, I guess, one from a board standpoint, also from a public standpoint, what can we convey in terms of the return on investment from the standpoint of what we save, one, and two, how it makes us more effective, more efficient. And we also talked about transparency and accountability. So if we had to do like a one paragraph or something, say the paper said, hey, you guys are spending all this money on the ERP, what can we convey in terms of the savings, both from being effective and efficient, but also in terms of the long-term benefits to the system of doing it?
Were you
Actually,
jumping in? Yeah.
Tommy, if you'll allow, Chief Jones, if you'll allow me to go first, and then I can pass it to you. Commissioner Reed, I think that's of course it's a legitimate question, and it's kind of the $64,000 question. I personally think, from where I sit, that and this is meant as a compliment to IT, not as a compliment to my own office. I feel like we got every ounce, have got and are getting every ounce of value out of that old EBS system that's about 2 decades old, and that was absolutely at the end of its supported tenure. It was kind of, it's a tough term, but it's called end of life. So our system is being retired and pushed out to sea, and we got every bit of value that we could have out of that. Without the kind of gigantic security issues that some of our peer districts and other places have seen, which is a testament to IT. And what I think we did a very methodical, unhurried request for proposal process, and we went out to all the blue chip companies that you could imagine, and we picked what we picked is what we're implementing. So we didn't do it in a hurry. We didn't pinch pennies and try to get anybody on the cheap, and we wound up with this. Essentially, it's this Oracle Fusion with some other very key things added. So I think we're putting time, money, and effort into it. And I think what we'll get, sir, is about 20 years more, like we did with the last one, of hopefully, best in class, secure and reliable systems that will be, we hope, quite boring and not the subject of headlines. And I think it will be a while, though, before users say, oh my goodness, this is so much better. That's kind of the growing pains that we talk about. And it isn't going to be whiz bang like Rocket Mortgage, push a button and you get your mortgage, and for good reason. We have to have systems built in there that are secure and that are not always just one button. But to answer your question, I think what we're on track to do is to get 2 decades or so of reliable, efficient, either best in class or blue chip kind of processes for the district, like we got out of them before. But when your ERP works well, it's almost like there's no story there, like you say, wow, everybody got paid, the vendors, so we do realize that a big success will be the absence of big stories and absence of extremely upset people.
And you made a great statement. I think we should all try to remember that. It's almost like you saying, being the referee, the umpire. If ERP really works well, there is no story.
No,
right. You don't notice it.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah, and I will just add 1 minute to what Chief Doherty said, which is directly related to what you just said, Commissioner Reed. We are working very hard to take out some of the wasted time and energy that it takes to have the checks processed, to have invoices paid, all of those things. And there will be bumps, without question. But, in 6 months, things should be rolling smooth, and we should be getting rid of, 30-40% of the overhead processes that we had before. So, and no one will know. No one will write any stories about it. No one will even care. So, but yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Before we transition, Commissioner Esposito, did you have any remarks?
Nothing for me.
Okay, thank you so much, team.
Thank you.
We can prepare for the next presentation of this morning, the Capital Improvement Plan, Year in Review and Year Forward. Good morning.
Good morning. Let me pull it up. And I have a cold, so please excuse me if I'm harder to understand this morning.
No worries.
Are you guys able to see it?
Yes.
All right. Good morning. My name is Maureen Gershberg. I'm the Director of Facilities Planning and Real Estate. Today we're going to go over the FY24 Capital Improvement Program, what we were funded, and what we're doing moving forward. This aligns with Board Priority 3. So before we kind of delve into the details specifically of the capital improvement program, I just want to give you some context. Historically, we called this presentation the capital improvement, basically summary and looking forward presentation, because historically, most of our capital funding was the CIP. However, over time, there's been more pots of money, more initiatives, both from the state and not from the state. And so while today we'll see that a lot of the smaller details on what was funded and not funded do relate to the CIP, we've decided to make this a more inclusive presentation to go over all the different pots of capital money so that we can kind of see the full picture. We'll be going over the facility conditions and investments, funding sources, summary of projects, and then looking forward. This slide, we use it frequently, but to help us kind of understand the hard decisions that we need to make, we currently do have a shortfall of $243 million each year when you look at the combined capital and maintenance budget. So we do not have an endless pot of money where we can say, all right, all these systems need to be replaced. These buildings are at the end of their life cycle. We have to make difficult decisions, and a lot of the decisions are, we'll talk about how those decisions are made, but it's a very detailed process. The decisions are basically, you kind of break it up into two different ways you kind of measure it. There's the physical systems themselves, the inspection reports, the preventative maintenance, the facilities condition index, the work orders, and the life cycle information. Those are objective pieces of information that we look at to help determine what projects need to be done. But we also have the more, not subjective, but it's less tied to the physical building itself. And it's also keeps in mind the overall district priorities that we have. So we look at annual review decisions. Maybe a decision to do a merger might bump up the priority of getting a specific project done at a school. We look at the CEFMP, the analysis in there, and we look at the CMP. And we use both of these types of evaluators to determine what projects should be done. These are our different pots of money. So as I said, historically, it was mostly just CIP, but over time, there's been several more. Capital Improvement Program, the Build to Learn, Healthy Schools Facility Funds, pass-through grants. These are all the state funding sources. The non-state funds are the 21st Century Buildings Program, ESSER, and money that we get directly from the city. This is a timeline of those different pots of money. So you'll see Healthy Schools Facility Funds. It's a year-long process. However, that pot of money is set to expire in FY26. So we have it from now, and it's about, I think, 48 million, I think, each year. But again, that's going to expire. CIP is a yearly, it happens every single year. So that's something that we can count on. And it is a year-long process. We submit the initial CIP projects in the fall every year, but they go through different kind of reviews and allocations. So there's going to be like the 75% allocation, the 90%, and then the 100%. And it's so that's why we have this presentation this time of year, because we just found out in end of May what that 100% allocation was going to be. Build to Learn, the state has asked that we roll those requests in with the CIP, so that followed a similar timeline this year. However, Build to Learn is just, it's a one-time pot of money. We've only used up a certain amount of it so far, but it's unlike CIP, it's not going to be happening every single year. The city money that we get, we request it in the fall, and they typically approve it in the fall every year as well. Pass-through grant, that's a one-time pot of money as well. So that has been requested and approved. 21st Century, we were able to, I think it was, we refinanced the bonds, and so we were able to get one more school out of the 21st Century Fund, and so that's how we're able to do the Joseph Briscoe and Frederick Douglass campus. And then ESSER, those are two funds, FY23 and FY24. ESSER 1 and ESSER 2 and ESSER 3, which must be spent by September 23 and September 2024. So those will be finishing up as well. And so you can see that we have a lot of different pots of money, and there's different requirements for each of those pots of money. For example, the CIP projects. Typically, a building has to have a 60% utilization for us to be able to complete a project there. Healthy Schools doesn't have that requirement, but it's mostly, it has different types of projects that qualify for it. ESSER, it's a lot of money, but you can't just go ahead and build a new school. So we ended up doing mostly health suite renovations and bathroom renovations with the ESSER fund. So it's different pots of money, different timing, and different requirements for the different pots of money. And just let me know if there's any questions. Oh, I think we're going to the end. So this is a geographic view of all the different projects except for ESSER. There's 73 projects for ESSER, so we'll show that on the next page. Just, it was getting lost when we put it all on one map, but we do have a map with all of them in the appendix. We often we always look at where our projects fall within our Community Conditions Index, which is a map we've created that looks at historic investment by CSA boundaries. Here's that same map, but with our ESSER projects. So this is a summary of the projects that we requested this year. We requested $193 million in CIP funding, and we're gonna kind of break it down. It gets very nuanced quickly. So 132 of that 193 was brand new projects or projects that had not been funded before. 27 million on top of that were projects from not last year, but years before that, where for some reason we weren't able to complete the project. The majority of the time, the bids just came in too high, a lot higher than what we were approved for. So it was projects that we had received funding for already, but which we weren't able to use it. The newly recycled, the 34 million, those are projects that just from last year, again, the bids came in way higher than what we were anticipating, what we had been approved for. And so that's additional recycled funds. There was 237 million that we requested for Built to Learn and 25 million from the FY23 Healthy Schools Fund for a total state request of 455 million. On top of that, we got our usual 19 million from Baltimore City, and then a total of 110 million from ESSER, and then that 117 million for 21st Century for the Frederick Douglass campus. So this is what we requested. This is what was funded. I'm just going to go back for a second. So we had, in the CIP specifically, we had requested 132 million. We got 46 million. So you can see there's a very big difference, and we knew we were not going to get funded on those projects. We know that, but we have a balance between, we want to be as realistic about showing our need, even though we know we're not going to get all that funding. So ultimately, the state did fund 46 million in our CIP. Historically, actually, under past leadership, CIP, we were only getting 35 million. So there was actually a little over $10 million in addition to CIP funding that we got this year that we hadn't gotten in past years. So we were happy about that, even though we know ultimately there is a huge gap between what we need and what we're getting. As I'd mentioned before, we had that additional 27 million that we'd already been approved for, and the newly recycled 34 million as well. So there's a total of 107 million that we would have for our CIP this year, but you really need to just focus on that 46 because those other funds, they were already ours to begin with. The state gave us permission to use them for other projects now. That 237 came through for City College and 25 million for that FY23 Healthy Schools. So there's that 86 million of unfunded projects from the CIP. And so we use that as the starting point for our FY25 CIP requests that we'll be putting in this fall. So these are the projects that, the CIP projects that were funded versus those that were not funded. So looking forward, as I said, the unfunded projects will use as a starting point for FY25. We do have a lot of major projects that are going to be coming up. So that's what this table is here. And we had 2 mid-year openings this year, Montebello and Highlandtown, and then the 12 additional ones in the near future. The pass-through grant that I mentioned at one time, that's going to be going towards the Built to Learn projects. And we only have 13 of the original 75 AC projects remaining. Any questions?
Thank you so much, Maureen. Commissioner Reed, I think I saw you.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess one thing resonates with me, I guess, when we look at the ESSER's going away in 24, the Built to Learn monies are one time. Healthy school facilities, they are expiring 26. Is there some way in terms of a chart where you can show the spend down? Because right now we're talking at spending, you know, you got the whole spending process is about over 300,000, over about 500 million, maybe more. And it's going to be a spend down because we lose ESSER, we lose Built to Learn. So people won't have the impression that that money is a continuum because it's going away. Because I don't want people to be optimistic saying, well, Built to Learn's forever. That's not. ESSER's going away next year. And like I said, you got the healthy facilities. So I guess maybe in terms of articulating the need, also the spend burn, because the burn's going to be pretty quick. Now, that's one thing that resonates with me. And I guess the other thing that comes to mind is we're talking about school openings with the whole idea behind the 21st century. We're talking about improving buildings when we're looking at City, Poly, and Western. But we're also looking the other side, which is probably complicated. We're looking at the declining student population. So when we look at the CIP and the 60%, what's the daunting task for us going forward where people want schools open, but they're going to go below that 60% in a lot of places?
So that's part of that balancing act. So we're trying to put the projects where the schools are underutilized, address those as much as possible with the Healthy Schools funds, because it doesn't have that 60% caveat. The state always pushes back, but then we respond back, I'm sorry, this program doesn't have that caveat. And so then we move forward. But as you said, that pot of money is running out. So we're just trying to be strategic at this point in time, but you're correct. At some point, that money is going to run out, and it's going to be difficult to maintain those buildings. Sometimes the state gives a little flexibility. We might say, okay, we know it's under 60%, but there's this programming that we're looking to put there that we think is going to boost utilization. So sometimes they are understanding of that kind of strategy, but not necessarily.
Commissioner Coy, I didn't see your hand, but I'm just going through.
Yep, I do have a broad question at a high level, you know, and this is part of me just trying to understand as I've come on the board in the past year. It does appear, and I appreciate, first off, all the work that you put in and shown, and the work that everybody is doing to work on different buildings. I've had the opportunity to be at one or two sort of ribbon cuttings and different events for new schools. It does, the big arc is what I'm looking at and trying to understand. And over the past, you know, 10 years, there's been a huge push to renovate, build, and do a lot of work with the school system, with the school building across, you know, historic. And I'm trying to get a perspective to understand of like what's on the horizon. In other words, is a lot of the emphasis and the responsibility right now in sort of bringing some of these major initiatives to conclusion, and then advocating and receiving the maintenance funds, or is there another sort of like on the horizon sort of need and push when it comes to some of the buildings, right? I guess there's always going to be some need there, but I'm trying to get a sense for the overall, for like where we are at in the longer arc of history.
Yeah, I think we can pull that for you. So the CIP does include major projects. It's not just limited to those special pots of money, but it's Furley has been 7 years in the making. And so it can sometimes take a lot longer to get those projects moving just because there's a lot more back and forth with the state frequently. So we can get back to you on the details on that, but I think it's also, and I can't speak to this maybe as well as other folks, but there's been leadership changes at the IAC, and there was definitely previously a bigger push that there should be less systemic projects and more just building replacements so that there are less systemics, but with our portfolio, that's just not possible. And so I think it'll be interesting moving forward, just in terms of how the IAC does view those systemic projects compared to what they did previously.
Can I add to that too? This is Sydney Smith, Executive Director, Planning, Design, and Construction. So I just wanted to add that, I mean, I think that through the 21st Century Program, and of course through Built to Learn and through some of the CIP, we've redone 35-ish schools by the time that all those programs are done, but that still leaves 100+ schools that are just getting systemics, you know, or just getting air conditioning, you know, just getting roofs, that are not getting 21st century learning updates, are not getting, you know, necessarily the technology updates, are not getting collaborative learning spaces, are not getting all of the things that 21st century schools can have gotten through our, you know, through the current building initiatives, and should have. And I think that, you know, along with the maintenance to be able to maintain all these buildings, yes, there definitely needs to be still a push to continue to have money that comes to us, maybe not necessarily through entities, but other entities, but that comes to us to be able to do things like a Furley in less than 7 years, because it shouldn't take 7 years to get enough money to do one elementary school, so that we can continue to redo the buildings that really do need to be redone.
Yeah, and that's sort of getting at the long arc of the question of just like where we're at in that cycle. So I appreciate that. And just want to make sure that I'm sort of understanding kind of how this fits in this moment in time. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Maureen and Cindy. This is always an intricate presentation. This is a living document, because we are always looking at new advancements as it relates to funding from the city, from the state, and from other sources. I'm always a fan of this team as we try to move towards an approach of seeing a targeted strategy. but we all know that's very cumbersome to do with so many variables that go into this portfolio management. Commissioner Reed?
I'm just apologizing to the group for stepping out after I asked the question. I didn't try to drop the bomb and leave the room. I just had, my roof guys wanted to get the hell out of my yard, so I had to go down and let them out. I'm sorry. Thank you.
No worries. No worries. Thank you so much for the presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Commissioner Reed, of all the people to have your roof work happening, these folks understand what roof work means. What that looks like.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they were up there. Yeah.
Jessica, is there anyone signed up for public comment today?
No, there is not.
Okay. And we do not have any procurement items for this meeting today. Just checking to see if there have been any updates.
You guys trying to set records for the length of the meeting?
No, there were no procurement items submitted.
Got it. So no procurement items for a matter of record, and there were also no compliance reports submitted for a matter of record. That would bring us to the conclusion of our last Operations Committee meeting for the 2022-2023 school year. Thank you all for your time and have a great rest of your day. This is end of call.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Have a good day.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.